Hello and welcome to another Tri-tutors video. In today's video we're going to be unpacking the approach that I would recommend for your English paper 2 for IEB. So firstly, understanding the time frame and the mark allocations. We're dealing with a 3-hour paper for 100 marks. Question 1 is our Shakespeare essay, which I would recommend you take 5 minutes to plan, 50 minutes to write. Then you have your novel essay for question 2, same story, 5 minutes planning, 50 minutes writing. Question 3 is your compulsory transactional writing, 5 minutes planning, 25 minutes writing. Question 4 is your optional transactional writing, 5 minutes planning, 25 minutes writing, and then checking time for 10 minutes. So one of my key tips for this paper is planning, and it is absolutely essential. Even in your reading time, you should be starting to think of how your essay is going to turn out. Please watch my videos on literature essays so that you can understand the process of planning. With IEB, they tend to give you some obscure, enigmatic, puzzling quote, and often the topics themselves are actually quite long-winded, and so people sort of freak out, or they think, oh shoot, I only have 3 hours, let me just start writing straight away. I would highly recommend that you don't do that. Give yourself the time in reading time, give yourself the 5 minutes before you start writing each of those essays to unpack the topic, to understand what the topic is trying to say, what is the question that they're asking. And once you've figured out that question, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to pick out the relevant information from your literature to actually utilize in that essay. So please take the time to plan and practice it before you write the exam, that 5 minutes planning and then 50 minutes to actually write the essay. Because in my experience, when I have the planning next to me, and I always do my planning on my question paper, but you can do it in your answer script as well. Just remember to cross it out afterwards. But if you have your planning, then you literally have a framework, and all you have to do is then go ahead and write in full sentences. And that planning is also going to help you, because if you watch my literature essay skills video, you'll see in the introduction you have to have a very clear idea of what you're going to be saying, because you need to have your 3 points in that introduction itself. So that planning is going to be absolutely critical. And then for the transactional writing, maybe you don't need the full 5 minutes of planning, but I do think it's helpful to plan because it has its own set of expectations, and it is mostly in an essay format. And so understanding what you're going to be putting in your intro, in your body paragraphs, and your conclusion is significant. That checking time is crucial because in this paper, all the spelling and the punctuation and the sentence structure, it all counts as part of the rubrics that I use to assess these pieces of writing. So please ensure that you go back, you reread your text very carefully, and you add a comma here, take away a comma there, make sure your spelling's correct, etc. So I've spoken a little bit about it already, but let's talk about literature essays, because you have 2 of those, 30 marks each. So as I said, planning is absolutely critical. Make sure you plan out your different paragraphs so you understand what your argument is. And before even planning out my paragraphs, I would decide what the topic is about, and I would literally write out my argument on my page, on my question paper, so that I understand exactly what I'm writing, what I'm trying to prove. Once again, if it sounds obscure, go check out that other video where I explain what I mean by argument. Make sure your argument is clear in every single paragraph that you're writing. That's significant. And just going back to planning for a second, your quotes, which you've obviously been studying, write those down beforehand. So have them next to you on your question paper. And then as you're writing your paragraph, you will notice where it is suitable to integrate those quotes. What it also does is, writing your quotes down, it clears up your brain space so that you're not thinking of remembering those quotes. You have them down on the paper. Now you just have to integrate them. Remember your style. You can score big marks with style, or you could lose a lot of marks because of style. So make sure contractions. Don't use contractions. Don't use the first person. Use formal language, subject, verb, object. Use the present tense. Try and integrate your quotes as far as possible. Be confident and assertive in your response. Don't say this may happen, or don't be hypothetical in any way. Make sure you stick to the point, you provide your evidence, you link, you back up everything that you say. Moving on to transactional writing, and here you have two 20-mark questions. I think a lot of people focus on that literature essay and they sort of think the transactional is irrelevant, but it's 40% of this paper, so it is really significant, and it is a lot easier to score better on the transactional, to score well on the transactional than on the literature essays. So really don't discard this. This paper I would definitely go in order for. Do your Shakespeare essay, do your novel essay, and then only look at your transactional writing. So with transactional writing, you need to have a clear shift that happens in your brain from the literature essays to the transactional writing. And that shift is your intention and your purpose of writing these. So a literature essay is very academic. Your intention is to argue a particular point in a very academic, sort of objective manner, and distanced manner. Whereas transactional writing, this is the one time in IEB English where we actually want to hear your own voice. We want to hear your personal voice, your personal opinions on current affairs. We want to see your critical thinking, and we want you to show that it's your thinking. So we want the I, me, my. We want you to be telling us what you think about the world. So it's very different to literature essays. So really make that distinction in your brain as you shift over from the essay to the transactional writing. Remember your 6 formats that you need to know, and then importantly, this is quite similar to summary actually in paper 1, but remember your intention and your audience, because that is critical to understanding the expectation of a transactional writing piece. So if you're writing a speech for your fellow grade 12s, then it's going to be a lot more informal. If, however, you are writing an open letter to the president, then it needs to be very formal, and it needs to be very methodical in how it's laid out. So remember that you're still writing an academic paper, you're still in an English paper, so you can't go too informal, you can't go too crazy with that. But the markers are looking for, has the student really grasped, okay, this is a blog post? Have they grasped that it's supposed to be somewhat informal? Have they grasped the audience that they're catering to? Are they providing decent study tips for a grade 8, or are they providing study tips that are geared towards adult learners? Does it actually make sense but within this particular audience and topic? So keep that in mind. Remember that prompt that they give you, the passage, looks like a comprehension text or article. Remember that it's just for inspiration. This is not a reading paper. This is called your writing paper. You do not have to use that. Please do not quote from that. It is just for inspiration. Let's say your topic's on rhino poaching and you don't know anything about it. That little extract is supposed to just give you a taste for what it's about. So it's just supposed to inspire you and get you thinking, and sometimes you have to write in response to that article, but you do not have to quote from it, and you do not have to worry too much about it. Definitely read it, but remember, I want to hear personal voice, so I don't want to just hear what the text is saying. Some general advice is go through some past papers. I know that they change the set works, every couple of years, but go back and see if there are any on the IEB website. You can also look at the supplementary papers. And the transactional writing ones, those are really good as well, because you can just see the types of questions that they ask and the topics that you should be aware of. So if you can find your set work, like the Tempest was tested last year, brilliant, go have a look at that, see if you can unpack that. And if you don't have time to write a full essay, just try it in your head, and even on paper, try and plan out that essay. How would you argue it? What would you argue? What quotes would you use to back up your perspective? And also, I'm sure that your teachers gave you some extra essay topics for the new set works that you are studying. Go back to your prelim papers, your June papers, even if you don't have your actual essay, but you have your question papers. Go back, try and plan that, try and see if you're ready, and get into the zone of thinking critically under time conditions. Studying. The general misconception about English is not a studying subject. You need to study your content, you need to study your quotes, you need to be aware of all your characters, all the storylines, all the quotes that you need to be integrating. So watch my video to figure out which quotes you need to be studying to integrate them appropriately. Remember your mindset in the examination. Just like paper 1, you are getting unseen texts or unseen topics presented at you within a time limit. So you really need to have this critical mindset in the exam. Don't freak out when you see the essay topics and it looks complicated. Take a highlighter, take a pencil, circle the keywords, try and understand what's going on. What are they asking you? Write it in your own words. Come up with your argument. But you can only do that if you have a positive mindset. And remember, with essays, we don't want to read an essay that's not sure of itself. We want to read an essay that is incredibly sure of itself, that has a clear argument and a clear understanding of where it's going and what needs to be done. So even if you're not feeling it, fake it till you make it. Act confident, act assertive, write assertively, write confidently. And lastly, focus on the intentions of each task. So a literature essay is to present a critical argument. Transactional writing is to showcase your personal voice within an academic way. So make sure you understand that intention. You know, in paper 1 we spoke about the intention of each text and analyzing it. Now you're actually writing the text, so you need to be aware of what your intention is. Is your intention to convince someone of something? Is your intention to inform someone of something? So keep that in mind. So wishing you the best of luck. I hope that you will find the paper to be maybe not easy, maybe it needs to be a little bit challenging, but doable. So good luck.